proxy holder for the city's budget director, John Feehouse. I'll now call to order a meeting of the members of TSASC. Rita, please call the roll.
Jack Jiha,
David Womack for Director Gia.
Brad Lander,
Michael Stern for Controller Lander.
Muriel Good-Trufant,
Michael Moore for Corporation Counsel.
Preston Niblack,
Dara Jaffe for Commissioner Niblack.
Adrian Adams.
Hector German for Speaker Adams.
Thank you, there's a quorum.
Thank you, Rita. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the members' last meeting. Minutes have been circulated for review. Are there any questions or suggested corrections? Hearing none, I'll call for roll for a vote. Mr. Stern?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
And I vote in favor as well. The resolution approving the minutes is hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is the election of an alternate director. Each membership class by proxy is entitled to elect an alternate director to represent them in committee and board of director meetings. Mr. Moore, as the proxy holder for the City Corporation Council, is entitled to elect himself as an alternate director. Mr. Moore, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Moore is hereby elected. Mr. German, as the proxy holder for the Speaker of the New York City Council, is entitled to elect himself as an alternate director. Mr. German, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. German is hereby elected. If there is no further business before the members, I will call the roll for vote to adjourn. Mr. Stern?
In favor.
Ms. Jackie?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of adjournment. Thank you for your participation. The meeting of the members is hereby adjourned. We'll move on to the audit committee meeting, which is chaired by Mr. Stern.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Stern, alternate director for Controller Lander and chair of the audit committee of TSASC. I'd like to convene the meeting by asking for the roll to be called for attendance. Rita, will you please call the roll?
Jack Jiha,
David Womack for Director Gia.
Brad Lander,
Michael Stern for Controller Lander.
Muriel Good-Trufant,
Michael Moore for the Corporation Counsel.
Preston Niblack,
Dara Jaffe for Commissioner Niblack.
Adrian Adams.
Hector German for Speaker Adams.
Thank you, there's a quorum.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the committee's last meeting. The minutes have been circulated for review by the committee. Are there any comments or corrections? Okay, I will now call the vote. Mr. Womack, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of approving the minutes. The resolution approving the minutes is hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is a resolution recommending the Board of Directors approve a contract between the corporation and CBIZ CPAs for independent auditor services. Following a competitive request for proposals, the evaluation committee recommended the selection of CBIZ to serve as independent auditor for the financial statements ending June 30, 25, 26, 27, and 28, with an optional one-year extension for the financial statements ending June 30, 2029. The rates are listed in the proposed resolution. Raymond Lee, the corporation's controller, is available to answer any questions on this selection. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Lee? Hearing none, I will now call the roll for a vote. Mr. Womack, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor. The resolution is hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is a self-evaluation and review of the committee's annual report. The committee is required to conduct an annual self-evaluation and provide the results of that evaluation to the Board of Directors. The report outlines the committee's actions during calendar year 2024. The proposed resolution expresses the committee's belief that it is functioning in a satisfactory manner and approves presenting the results of this self-evaluation to the Board of Directors. Are there any questions or comments?
No.
If not, I'll call the roll for a vote. Mr. Womack, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the proposed resolution, and it is hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is the review of the corporation's internal controls manual. This is a review item only, and there will be no vote. Pursuant to the Audit Committee Charter, Section 3H, the committee must annually review the internal controls manual. Changes to the internal controls have been made since last reviewed by the committee, and a black line version of the manual has been provided for reference. The corporation's controller, Raymond Lee, is available to answer any questions regarding the internal controls. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lee? No, there's no resolution. The final item on the agenda is a presentation by independent auditors, CBIZ. With us today from CBIZ or CBIZ to lead the presentation is Jim Wilkinson. Jim, may you please proceed?
Sure, thank you. Pleasure to be here this afternoon. I am going to attempt to use the technology to share my screen with the PowerPoint deck, but I believe you also have a hard copy of. How's that? That looks like that worked.
Yep, we can see it.
Great. It's, again, a pleasure to be here this afternoon and present on behalf of the firm. Again, my name is Jim Wilkinson. I'm a managing director with CBIZ CPAs. I'm based in Providence, Rhode Island. We'll be working closely with Dan McElwee, who is on vacation this week and apologizes for not being present, as well as Warren Ruppel, who will be continuing his role as an advisory shareholder on the engagement, the audit engagement. Yeah, through some slides here. The agenda for today's presentation, again, is outlining our audit planning communication with the board of directors, in detailing service delivery timelines, responsibilities of ourselves, management, and the board, reviewing the deliverables we expect to be issuing, and some risk assessment factors impacting this year's engagement. If there are questions as we go through, I'd be happy to take them as they come, or we can certainly hopefully have a few seconds at the end to review any remaining questions that come through. You know, our service delivery timeline, our engagement, as in prior years, is being designed and planned to meet the issuance deadline of September 30th, which is prescribed. We've begun our planning activities. We've issued a draft of the engagement letter, which is also part of the packet, and today we're presenting the scope to the audit committee. We do expect our field work to begin in mid-August, once the books are closed and the records are ready. Receiving draft financial statements from management in early September, finishing our procedures and reconvening with an audit committee meeting prior to September 30th to obtain approval to move forward with issuing. Very consistent with prior years, and we anticipate no issues meeting this timeline going forward. Our responsibilities as auditors of the financial statements is to conduct our audit based on our risk assessment procedures and to perform further audit procedures that give us adequate substantial evidence to support an opinion on the financial statements. The opinion is expected, as in prior years, to state that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the U.S. A few more details on that process is here. As part of the package that will be issued, there will be other required supplementary information, including the MD&A, that we will not be opining on, but responsible to read that for consistency and conclude that in our report as well. Besides our opinion on the financial statements, we will also be issuing a report on compliance with the corporation's investment guidelines, as we've done in prior years, and again anticipate no issues or exceptions on that based on our planning activities to date. Responsibilities of management within the corporation are for making all management decisions, performing all management functions regarding day-to-day operations and financial reporting, for the preparation of the financial statements, for selecting accounting principles that are used by the corporation, maintaining internal controls, and presenting those financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. At the end of the audit, which is required, we'll also request management present a representation letter to us attesting to meeting these responsibilities during the conduct of the engagement. Responsibilities of those charged with governance, namely the audit committee and board. And the responsibilities include overseeing the financial reporting process, overseeing the direction of the organization, appointing the auditors, which was just accomplished, informing us of any known or suspected fraud involving the organization, and resolving any potential disagreements between us and management, again, based on our procedures and history with the corporation, not expecting any significant difficulties in this regard. Again, moving forward, our engagement deliverables will be consistent with prior years. Issuance of our opinion on the financial statements, issuance of a report on the organization's compliance with its investment guidelines, as well as the issuance of a report on the government auditing standards, commenting on the corporation's compliance with laws and regulations and internal controls relating to financial reporting. We will also be issuing a summary communication to those charged with governance regarding any matters that were significant during the conduct of the engagement, namely reiterating again responsibilities of us and management, discussing if there were any difficulties, any significant audit adjustments and the like. Consistent with prior years, right now we're not expecting any remarkable comments in that engagement, but we'll certainly keep the audit committee and board informed if anything does arise in those areas. Our planned audit approach, it begins with understanding the organization's environment, including its internal control. That's key for our process of assessing risk of material misstatements of the financial statements and for designing the application of further audit procedures that we will be employing. Again, we look for designing our procedures to detect material misstatements, which may result from either management override of control, errors, fraudulent financial reporting, misappropriation of assets, or violations of governmental laws and regulations. Consistent with that, our planned approach is two prongs. One is entity-wide consideration, certainly entity-level controls, tone at the top, the environment that the audit committee and board of directors set. We look at historical financial reporting practices and then the oversight that the board and audit committee have employed. We do look at technology practices, largely IT general controls over systems and applications that the corporation uses to prepare its financial records and financial statements. And within that, we also look at the design of key internal controls over certain transaction cycles that are significant to the financial statement. From that, we will develop a risk profile that will drive the testing, again, to obtain significant evidence to support our opinion and resolving those overall risks that are presented from those entity-wide considerations. Largely, a lot of our procedures are again going to be confirmation procedures with independent parties, confirmation of cash and investment balances, confirmations of bond payable, review and compliance with debt agreements, cutoff tests regarding liabilities, as well as cutoff tests regarding the accrual of revenues. We know that the revenues of the corporation come in once a year. They're based on annual consumption. We look at the accruals that are used to true up that accrual to a June 30th year end. And we'll then apply an overall review of the financial statements, including note disclosures for their fair presentation and completeness. Going further on slide 11, significant audit risks that have been identified. And this one is applicable in all audits. It's not specific to the corporation itself. We're always required to look at management's override of controls, being both a significant and a fraud risk. We do apply procedures in that regard, including inquiries of senior management and other employees, retrospective review of significant accounting estimates. We also look at journal entry testing and top-end adjustments in the preparation of the financial statements to ensure that the financial statements do reconcile to the underlying accounting record. We have identified a few key judgments and estimates. Again, the most significant being the recording of the tobacco settlement revenue receivables at June 30th. Again, we'll be looking at the procedures that management uses to formulate that estimate, what factors it's based on, what historical information is available. I'm also the audit partner on our audit of the Rhode Island Tobacco Settlement Corporation, so I'm very familiar with the process and the variability in those payments as they've been coming through in recent years. So certainly a significant number, but it's based on a number of factors that can be deemed reasonable and evaluated as part of the audit process. Reviewing prior year audit results, as of June of 24, there was some accounting for tobacco settlement revenues that were inadequate to service the debt service. We know in resolving that, there's a security agreement with the trustee where revenues that come in will be used to service the debt going forward. Certainly resolves a significant uncertainty. We will also use technology again within the audit to assist with sampling methods and testing, as well as again looking at the overall IT general controls and systems that are used. Specific procedures that we will use relate to fraud. We typically use questionnaires of key employees regarding fraud matters. We will do required interviews with certain employees, members of the board or audit committee, to discuss any concerns over fraud or related matters or any allegations of such. We will certainly look at the internal controls at various levels and approvals and documentation that are in place. And then the results of those will also depend on what further procedures, if any, are needed to gain comfort over fraud controls and the lack of existence of fraud. A key portion of this is certainly inquiries of governance. So I'd like to pause at this time if anybody does have any concerns over suspected fraud or allegations of fraud, or questions that you believe we should be made aware of in part of our planning process, or questions you may want answered when we wrap up our engagement. We'd be pleased to take those now. I know my contact information is in the deck, so if anybody has any questions on that, or would like an executive session at any point during the process, please reach out. We welcome that contact to create a dialogue around those items and ensure that our audit procedures are appropriate in the circumstances.
Is there any awareness on the board?
Moving on.
No.
No.
Okay, we're fine. You
Okay.
can move on.
Good answer. You know what? Our audit standards also require us to implement an element of unpredictability in every engagement. Due to the limited nature of the corporation and its transactions, we'll be creative in that and look for an area that is, maybe outside the norm. We will certainly be implementing that, and we'll certainly report on the results of that with our meeting with the audit committee at the conclusion of our engagement. We do look at special factors that may be implementing this year's engagement. There are no new accounting standards that are anticipated to have a material impact on the financial statements. There are a few statements coming up in future years. I know we have a couple of slides of detail on those. New Gatsby Statement 101 on compensated absences. Again, no anticipated impact due to the lack of employees of the corporation. Statement 102 on certain risk disclosures. That one is applicable this year. Reviewing the financial statements, we know that the concentration of the corporation's revenue source, being the tobacco settlement revenues, is fully disclosed based on our understanding of the standard and the understanding of historical disclosures. We don't believe there'll be any material impact, but we're looking for best practices as that statement starts to get implemented, and we'll advise management and the board of any changes that we believe may be necessary in disclosures of risks and concentrations. The next two standards, Statement 103 and 104, are not going to be applicable till the 26th engagement. Statement 103 deals with financial reporting model improvement. It makes some modifications to content of the MD&A. It does have some other implications regarding budget to actual presentations, which are not present within the corporation's financial statements. So we believe this will not have a significant impact. And again, Statement 104 deals with disclosures regarding capital assets, but as the corporation has none, we're not anticipating any impact there. Overall, we are required to be independent of the board, both in fact and in appearance. We do not believe we provide any that would impact our independence. We provide no consulting services outside of routine advice relating to audit and accounting matters. We are not aware of any roles of our employees or relatives having any management roles or oversight role with the corporation, and no known financial interrelationships of our firm with the organization. We've come to the conclusion that we are in fact independent. Again, we monitor this during the engagement, and again at the close, if anything changes, there will certainly be back in touch with the board to advise and review any matters that come up. The next few pages, I know Warren refers to these as propaganda. It's a little more background on the firm, who we are, where we've been. Again, my firm, I was formerly with Markham LLP. We merged into CBiz back in November. I'm the new kid on the block, but happy to be of service and be involved in this engagement with the team. Within the package is also a draft of our engagement letter, which we will certainly discuss with management. Any concerns there if it's reviewed by your council, looking for clarification of any of the terms and conditions. We'll get those addressed promptly. And at this point, I would open it to any other questions that may have come up or you may have on the audit process or anything else may be able to answer.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Wilkinson?
No.
No. Okay, hearing none, if there's no further business before the committee, I'll now call the roll for a vote to adjourn. Mr. Womack, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of adjournment as well. Thank you for your participation. The meeting of the Audit Committee is hereby adjourned. We will now move on to the Governance Committee meeting, which is chaired by Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Michael Moore, alternate director for City Corporation Council and the chair of the Governance Committee of TSASC. I'd like to call to order a meeting of the committee and ask for the roll call for attendance.
Jakshi Ha,
David Womack for Director GHOP.
Brad Lander,
Michael Stern for Controller Lander.
Muriel Good-Trufant,
Michael Moore for Corporation Council.
Preston Niblack,
Dara Jaffe for Commissioner Niblack.
Adrian Adams.
Patrick Dermott for Speaker Adams.
Thank you, there's a quorum.
Thank you, Rita. The first item on the agenda is a resolution to approve the minutes of the committee's last meeting. The minutes have been circulated for the committee review. Are there any comments or corrections? No, so hearing none, I will now call the roll for a vote. Mrs. Stern, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. German, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Wellman, how do you vote?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the resolution. The resolution approves the minutes, it's hereby approved. The next and final item on the agenda is the review and approval of the corporation's policy on the procurement of goods and services. The committee is required to periodically review the corporation's policy on the procurement of the goods and services. No changes are proposed at this time, but do you have any comments or questions with respect to this? Thank you. So if there are no comments or questions, I will now call the vote. Mrs. Stern, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Jerome, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Womack, how do you vote?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the resolution. The resolution is hereby approved. If there's no further business before the members, I will now call the roll for a vote to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Stern, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Jerome, how do you vote?
In favor.
And Mr. Womack, how do you vote?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of adjournment as well. Thank you all for your participation. The meeting of the Governance Committee is hereby adjourned. We will now move on to the Board of Directors meeting, which is chaired by Mr. Womack.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon. I'm David Womack, alternate director for Budget Director GHOP and chair of the TSASC Board of Directors. I'd like to convene the board meeting by asking for the roll to be called for attendance. Rita?
Jakshi Ha,
David Womack for Director GHOP.
Brad Lander,
Michael Stern for Controller Lander.
Muriel Good-Trufant,
Michael Moore for Corporation Council.
Preston Niblack,
Dara Jaffe for Commissioner Niblack.
Adrian Adams.
Patrick Dermott for Speaker Adams.
Thank you, there's a quorum.
Thank you, Rita. The first item on the agenda is a resolution to approve the minutes of the board's last meeting. The minutes have been circulated for review. Are there any comments or questions or corrections?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call the roll for a vote. Mr. Stern?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the resolution. The minutes are hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of the corporation's budget and financial plan. Pursuant to Public Authorities Law, the corporation is required to submit a budget report and four-year financial plan. The budget contains estimated receipts and expenditures for the current and next fiscal year and the actual receipts and expenditures for the last completed fiscal year. For your attention, we note that the subordinate liquidity reserve account will be fully depleted to pay the upcoming June 1st, 2025 debt service payment, and the corporation will need to draw unpledged TSRs pursuant to the security agreement for such payment and the upcoming debt service payments for fiscal years 2026, 2027, and 2028. Are there any questions related to the budget or financial plan? Hearing none, I'll call the roll for a vote. Mr. Stern?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the resolution. The resolution approving the budget is hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the corporation's planned EMA filing. Following the receipt of the final April 2025 tobacco settlement revenue distribution, the corporation plans to file an EMA notice. The notice provides information related to the TSR received and the need for the corporation to deplete the subordinate liquidity reserve fund and to utilize unpledged TSRs pursuant to the security agreement in order to make the June 1, 2025 and December 1, 2025 debt service payments. The draft EMA notice has been provided to the board. This is a review item only and no vote will be taken. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. The next item on the agenda is approval of the corporation's procurement of directors and officers insurance. The proposed resolution would approve the procurement of D&O liability policies from several insurance companies through the corporation's broker, USI, providing $50 million of coverage beginning June 25th, 2025, for a period up to June 24th, 2026, for directors, members, and officers of the corporation. The proposed resolution authorizes a not-to-exceed payment of $410,000, which includes a large cushion to account for market fluctuations. The broker is currently working to procure the policies, and TSASC will be having discussions as needed with the policy providers. We will update the board once the policies have been procured. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll call the roll for a vote. Mr. Stern?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the resolution. The resolution is hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is a resolution which would authorize the corporation to enter into an agreement with CBIZ CPAs PC for independent auditor services. Following competitive requests for proposals, the evaluation committee recommend the selection of CBIZ to serve as the independent auditor for the financial statements for the years ending June 30th, 2025, 2026, 27, and 2028, with an optional one-year extension for the financial statements ending June 30th, 2029. The rates are listed in the proposed resolution. The audit committee has recommended the board take this action. Raymond Lee, the corporation's controller, is available to answer any questions on this selection. Are there any questions for Mr. Lee? Hearing none, we'll call the roll for a vote. Mr. Stern?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the resolution. The resolution is hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is a presentation by Michael Stern, the Audit Committee Chair, regarding the committee's self-evaluation.
The Audit Committee has completed its self-evaluation after reviewing its reports of its activities in the previous calendar year. Based on the committee's accomplishments, the committee found that it had conducted itself in a satisfactory manner consistent with its charter.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. If there's no further business before the board, I'll now call the roll for a vote to adjourn. Mr. Stern?
In favor.
Ms. Jaffe?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
In favor.
Mr. German?
In favor.
And I vote in favor of the resolution. Thank you all for your participation, and the meeting of the board is hereby adjourned. That concludes today's TSASC meeting.